Okay, Sam, we are currently live now.
Good evening, everyone, and you're welcome to TechBiz webinar for today. It's again my pleasure to have every one of us on the platform, and it's exciting seeing that the conversation we're having today, and exciting to see quite a number of people turning up early for TechBiz. I find this quite inspiring. Thank you everyone. Antonia and Wayne, thank you for joining. I see quite a number of people in the little room. Thank you for those of you that are joining us across the platforms, across the Facebook platform, across LinkedIn. Nice to have everyone on the call. Thank you so much, and welcome to again, interesting, the 96th episode of TechBiz. TechBiz is a webinar that we bring to you every last Thursday of the month, brought to you from the stable of Eco Innovation Center. Eco Innovation Center happens to be an incubation and accelerator center set up somewhere in Fitaula, Lagos, where we are committed to helping and hold businesses in the startup ecosystem. In the last 95 episodes, we have made effort to bring in subject matter experts onto the platform who have shared with us from the wealth of experience what they found instructive in the journey of the startup ecosystem. First, knowing the environment in which you play in, you've had to do stuff around the building your team, how to use model cameras, investment readiness, how to raise funds. We've talked about building products and not apps and different kinds of topics which to a large extent we found generally provides the right support structure for startups in the ecosystem. And this evening again, we're excited coming your way and bringing again another subject matter expert to this platform. I mean, if you've never attended any of our webinars, it is nice to have you here. And you want to see any of the previous webinars, the last 50, okay? Someone says my voice is not clear. Okay.
Is it much better now? Can I just get a feedback from the chat room? Is my voice much better? Much better. Okay, great. Technology at times can be a burden. It's great. So again, it's nice to really have every one of us in the house this evening. The last 95, we've tried to bring to us this different subject matter experts. And if you want to watch any of the previous 95 episodes, which I promise you it's going to be quite enlightening, feel free to go to our website, www.ecoicent.com/webinar. My colleague is dropping the chat room, and there you will be able to see all the previous 95 episodes and take your time to go through it and see if you find things that are quite instructive that will help you on this journey. Again, as we strive from Eco Innovation Center to provide the right handholding, the right support structure that helps you commercialize and scale up. That is our obsession in Eco Innovation Center. We're proud of this particular mission. Eco Innovation basically adds value in 5 different areas of the startup ecosystem. We look at supporting companies who are working in the civic center space, civic tech space, people who are doing things around renewable energy. You're doing something around edtech. You're doing things around marketing and media tech, and you're doing things around agri-tech. You will find that we're there to provide the right support to allow you scale and accelerate. And again, it's wonderful to have everyone in here. My name remains Victor Binga-Folabi. I am your host for I'm your host for TechBiz webinar brought to you by Eco Innovation Center. Should you go through any of the recording recorded webinars and have questions to ask, or areas you're not clear about, or you want a deeper understanding of anything that's been discussed, we have a WhatsApp group and a Telegram group that you can be a part of. And myself and other previous facilitators and other subject matter experts are on these platforms in the Telegram, where you can join the TechBit Nation, either on Telegram or on WhatsApp. The link has been dropped. Just feel free to come in there and you can ask your questions. You see information being dropped there about things in the ecosystem, grant opportunities, job opportunities, all manner of conversations happen there. Again, it's just to provide a safe community where we're helping to provide the right hand holding for startups who are in the ecosystem. Okay, so that's my way of welcome and way of saying thank you for always keeping a date with us. It's a pleasure to have you. And this evening again, we're talking about a topic I find interesting. And why is this interesting? When you play this place in an emerging market like Nigeria, it is critical that you understand how to navigate. I've seen policies render businesses prostrate. I've seen people leverage policies to extremely scale up their businesses and get their businesses to the next level. It's quite critical that when you're playing an emerging economy and an emerging market like Nigeria, it's important that we understand the rules of the game. Again, people say, oh, rules always come to stifle, and maybe not. If you check, like my friend was sharing with us sometime last year, the most regulated sector in this country is the financial sector, which means with fintechs and all the rest, they've been the one with the highest amount of scrutiny and rules and hurdles about how to start a business, launch a business, get registered and all that. Incidentally, that happens to be the sector that has exploded and grown the most in the whole startup ecosystem. About close to 50% of our startups are actually playing the fintech space, which means that regulation in itself might not be what stifles. It actually might be something that helps to unlock. Again, it's a function of how you understand how to leverage the environment and how to use regulation. That's why we'll be discussing this evening about navigating the legal landscape for tech startups in Africa. It's the legal landscape. What also makes it interesting is that quite a number of companies are trying to scale up. Scaling up helps to when you scale up, it helps you to get better valuation. But again, in scaling up, there are a lot of nuances. The nuances across all the 52 countries in Africa in terms of regulatory framework differs. So how exactly do I move up? And yet I want to scale up. And that's why we think that this is important for organizations and startups as they have the ambition to grow their businesses and to improve from where they are. That's what we're looking at. So the legal landscape for tech startup in Africa can be very complex. Okay, we have startups. I do remember, I mean, there was once a mobility startup that ran into some troubled waters and the whole ecosystem, and there was so much noise here in Lagos. But again, the question was, I asked someone, I said there was an innovation master plan. What was the plan in there, and were those things taken into cognizance as we began to unveil? So the question again is, do you understand the rules of the game in the sector where you play, and how are you able to leverage that for growth? And that's why we think it's important in this particular episode, the 96th episode of TechBiz series, to talk about the regulatory framework and how do I grow up. So in 2020, okay, the Nigerian government passed the KAMA, which aims to improve the ease of doing business, make it easier for startups to register and operate. However, there has been some concerns about implementation potential impact of the new law, which again, we can talk about the startup bill. So when you've launched the startup bill and we've gotten it quite, I think a few states have gotten domesticated like Lagos, what's the implication of the startup bill? How does it enable? How does it unlock? What value does it bring in here? So again, those are the questions we need to know, because quite a number of people who are startups may not even have read what the startup bill is all about and what value, what qualifies it for a startup, what are the benefits, what are their tax incentives. Those are the things we need to understand. And according to World Bank Ease of Doing Business Report 2022, Nigeria still ranks 131st out of 190 countries in terms of ease of doing business, with difficulty areas such as registering your property, paying taxes, enforcing contracts. Okay, that's a critical one. Okay, other legal challenges facing tech startups in Africa include intellectual property protection. I mean, you're coming up with something exciting, maybe in the area of NFTs and all that is something novel. How do you protect yourself so that people don't steal your ideas? You find yourself pitching to investors. You find yourself sending your pitch decks. How sure am I that I'm not just exposing myself to competitors to copy my idea, and then I find myself struggling. So those are the conversations we need to have. There's data privacy and compliance with regulations in NCC. How do those things play? Guidelines on data services and the Central Bank of Nigeria's regulation on fintechs. How do all these affect how we navigate, build, curate, iterate in the ecosystem, okay? And how do I make sure that, again, like I said, this becomes a leverage for our startups to be able to catalyze. So however, with the right guidance and understanding of the legal framework, startups can mitigate risk and avoid potential legal challenges. This webinar aims, amongst other things, to provide the participants who are on with valuable insights and practical guidance on company formations. And that's where you start from. I mean, again, why do investors invest in teams and not individuals? And when you invest in teams, why are some teams better able to attract investment compared to others? Do you even have a term sheet? What are the conditions of the term sheets? Those are all the potential things that we see that they stifle the growth of startups, and that's why we're bringing this to you today. Okay, so this one will help to provide you with that insight and practical guidance on company formations, intellectual property protection, data privacy, regulatory compliance, and legal challenges specific to the tech industry in Africa. To add to it is also the issue around security, cybersecurity of your people. I mean, there are rumors here and there of when things happen, how should I navigate them? You get hacked, data breaches occur. What are the processes? How exactly am I able to navigate that? And so I have a subject matter expert in here who will be coming on board. He is a highly experienced startup lawyer and entrepreneur based in Lagos, Nigeria, with almost a decade of successful experience in handling complex legal, regulatory, technology, and business issues. He has built a reputation as a trusted advisor to regulated businesses in Africa. Okay, he currently is serving as the co-founder of Recopers Consult and counsel at TNP, a top-tier law firm in Lagos. He applied his backgrounds in computer engineering, legal training, and compliance to help regulated businesses in Africa overcome legal and regulatory challenges. Okay, his expertise includes the development of frontier technologies, licensing strategies, regulatory liaison, license procurements, financial crimes commission issues, corporate restructuring, intellectual property enforcement, trainings, and all that. Those are the area of expertise he brings to bear. In addition to his work with Recompass, he has also co-founded 2 startups. And again, that's what we always try. We always make sure we bring people who have won the shoes, people who have both experience of the coin. We gives you an unfair advantage. And that's the bit of joining TechBase every last Thursday of the month. We bring to you not only people, it's not about the tech, it's that people who are practicing, who are doing that, who have walked the path, and who are able to bring you the right kind of support he has. So Applatch Inc. and StartButton are 2 startup firms he's built. Specifically, Applatch Inc. focuses on productivity and mental awareness, while StartButton provides business with the tools they need to expand their operations in Africa in a matter of minutes. Scale up, scale up, scale up, which is core to the mission we have in Eco Innovation Center. And overall, he has a diverse background and extensive experience, which makes him a valuable resource for businesses opening in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, please join me in welcoming to the platform, to the TechBase platform this evening, Malik Bola-Kale. Thank you very much, Malik, and it's nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Falabi. I think you've done justice to the topic already. And I was about to ask.
And I like your background. Your background is quite inspiring. And, you know, every time we expect to speak to a legal person, we're looking for your black and white outfit, you know, and the wigs and everything. But again, this is a startup specific, legal practitioner. He understands the ecosystem and he looks like us. So we find it easier to relate. I mean, Malik, don't let me take much of your time. Again, it's your floor. Please go ahead. And we'll come back again at quarter to the end of the hour where we have a conversation around what are the key topics you've spoken about and what are the questions we have. For everyone on the platform, thank you so much. Quite a number of us in here. As Malik speaks, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat room across all the platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all. Just drop them in the chat room. My team, Mike, will help coordinate, and then we'll make sure we get them across to Malik. In quarter to the hour, I will be back again with Malik to take us through the question and answer and see how we can bring more context. Thanks. Malik, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I said, I mean, I think like the majority of the things I need to say on this call have already been discussed. And I feel like, okay, you know what, so what's next for me to say on this call that hasn't been said? But it's interesting to be here, and thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be speaking to co-founders like myself. And I consider myself an integral part of everybody's journey. I mean, everybody I come in contact with. And it is such a pleasure to be speaking with us today. We're basically going to look at this from different perspectives, right? I mean, it's very easy to think, okay, you know what? I mean, I can tell you everything about how law works, how it relates to your business and all of that. But I think we'll try to make this as
I think we're having. Okay. Is it from my end? I think Malik's network is hanging. Okay.
Yeah, this is network. He's trying to join back.
Okay, that's fine. Then you can share the screen. Again, good. I think Malik is back. Malik, nice to have you back. Please share your screen again. Can we unmute him?
Yeah, thanks.
Great, great. Malik, I think you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Apologies for that.
So
I hope the internet is more stable now. I lost internet for a bit. Can everyone hear me? You can just leave a chat if you can hear me.
That is good. Works now. Go ahead. Share the screen. Fine. We see your screen. Super. You can roll.
Fantastic. So yeah, like I was saying, it's very easy to say, why do I need to involve lawyers in my negotiations? I mean, lawyers are not exactly skilled in maths. So, I mean, if you look at it, a lot of lawyers will tell you that why they studied law is because they're not exactly good when they were in their mathematics classes. But I will show you why you need to involve a lawyer in these negotiations, especially because of their experience, right? Another question is, at what stage do you need a lawyer, right? We'll be talking about that and the risk associated with not involving a lawyer at all, right? Or not prioritizing legal needs, right, as you grow in your startup. Questions around whether or not you need an in-house lawyer, right? I mean, which may or may not cost you more, right? And how to look at costs when it comes to running your business and engaging lawyers, right? So one big mistake that a lot of startups make is that they put the cart before the horse, right? Which is you put your business first and you forget that there's like compliance and everything. As with everyday thing you do, like as you live every day and you have your own rights, so do others, right? And for you to be able to operate in any community, right, there are laws that guide the operations generally. And law seeks two primary things, right? To balance your own interest as a business with the interest of the person that you're serving, right? But a lot of people make the mistake where they think about law from one perspective and think about law from the perspective of trying to stifle business. No, that is not it. I mean, law just seeks to balance interest. And I mean, as you would all know, in balancing interest, even family interest, balancing interest between two siblings can be very difficult, right? There's no way one sibling will feel cheated than the other. Whereas you, as the person looking at things objectively, will feel that you have done justice one way or the other. And that's how law works, right? And so we shouldn't have that mindset in thinking about applying law to our businesses, right? You need to think about it from the perspective of how law can benefit your business or how you can leverage law to your advantage, right? And that's why it's very important to bring in a lawyer at a very early stage, right? Not at the later stage when your business runs into trouble. I mean, a lot of people see lawyers as those people who solve problems. Yes, lawyers solve problems. Yes, compliance people can help you solve compliance hurdles, but why wait till those hurdles need to be crossed? Why not just figure things out from the very early stage and get guidance and not even have to get to trouble in the first place? You know, when you meet people, right, and you tell them that you're a lawyer, right, first thing they will tell you that, I have a lawyer friend and I want to get into trouble. But why do you want to get into trouble before involving the lawyer? Why not tell the lawyer the trouble you want to get into and then figure it out with him, right? So it's very important to always engage lawyer, I mean, from the start of your startup. And we will try to make this as pragmatic as possible, where we walk through the stages of your startup. I mean, from when you register the company to when you exit the company, essentially. Right. So looking at it from the first stage, right, finding a partner. Why do I need a lawyer in finding a partner? Why do I need the law in finding a partner? As with everything, right, when you're about to enter into a new relationship, there will be a lot of considerations that you need to put in place. Considerations as to, you know, what would the role of your co-founder be? What would your role be in the business, right? Are you being too cagey, right, about like what your role should be versus what the role of your founder should be? What happens if your founder wakes up and decides to leave the company? Does he still hold shares? How do you remove him if things don't go well? How do you appoint another founder, right? How do you guys decide to go your separate ways when you're both committed to the project? And all of these conversations, right? You will find that a lot of these conversations cannot be had only between the two founders, because there will be a lot of misunderstanding that you then need a lawyer to help you fix, right? Outside even thinking about like percentage splits and how to set up the company, you need to also think about like monetary contributions, exit plans. I always say it, a lot of times startups don't discuss their exit plans at the very early stage of founding a company. They try to discuss it maybe at a mid stage or later stage when it has already become too late. And that's when you find that the exit plan of each founder is different. So founder one's exit plan can be, okay, you know what, I want us to be acquired by another company. And the other founder's exit plan can be, oh, you know what, I want us to actually divest our interest in the company to founders, right? Or continue to run this as a legacy business, right? But then divest like a large proportion of our shares in the business. Or a founder might say, I want to retire in 3 years, and all of that. So you need to have those conversations, and it is lawyers who are experienced in working with a lot of these startups and firsthand seeing all of these problems that are able to like make suggestions, because it's also very important that you understand that there are certain things that people have tried and failed, right? So with the experience that lawyers have, they're able to help you understand how to make these arrangements, how to have these conversations, and how to resolve them ultimately. So you also need to think about like your plans for fundraisers. A lot of the time, people have different plans. And when I talk about fundraise, I always talk about something called investor founder fit or investor startup fit. If your investor is not fit for your startup, you might be running a very big risk, and your startup might be running the risk of shutting down in the first 1 year, right? There's like a lot of investor troubles that you may have. And as a startup founder, you need to make sure that there's an alignment between you and your investor. And there's nobody to help you ensure that that alignment exists than a lawyer that understands your business, your plans, and your aspirations for what you're building, right? Without involving that lawyer from the very early stage, you don't have that understanding. And in negotiating with your founders, I mean, with your investors, for example, when they give you what we call term sheets essentially document spelling out the terms of an investment, right? When they give you term sheets like that, I mean, half of the things they've said there, you don't understand. They use terms like drag along, tag along, and some very, very obscure looking terms that will be difficult for you to understand, right? They ask you for board seats. You don't know what the implications are. It is your lawyers that are able to help you explain what the implications are. But you know, there's a way a lawyer would explain the implication of something high level, right, to you, just like generally. And there's a way a lawyer who understands where you're going and what your business is like, right? There's a way they will break it down differently. And we've had scenarios when it comes to like investor founder fit where companies have shut down because of that. I mean, Oyapay is an example, right? Where I think in 2018 or 2019, the business had to like pack up operations because the investor refused to divest interest in the company for them to raise more money, right? And the business could not move forward. And because of that, it had to basically shut down. So it is not only law that shuts down companies, right? Even your conversations with your co-founder could shut down, potentially shut down the company at a very early stage. Wrong conversations with your investor or wrong investor on board can shut down your company very, very early. So you need to like work with lawyers to figure that out, right? Figure out whether an investor actually suits you. And sometimes lawyers have experience dealing with certain investors and they can tell you upfront, right, how dealing with those investors might be, right? Second bit I would like to speak about is like setting up your company. In setting up a company, there's like a lot of consideration, right? I call this finding utopia. I mean, finding the perfect business structure, business place, and everything for your company. A lot of startups, I mean, me inclusive, have made mistakes in the past, right? And some are still making it as we speak, or first setting up a US entity without having any plan. So because you feel that it is fashionable, or it is in trend for people to usually go to set up a C Corp or an LLC, whichever type of company you decide to set up. By the way, C Corp is similar to like a company limited by shares in Nigeria, where you have like people holding shares, and then it's easier to bring in an investor using a C Corp arrangement. S Corp is mostly used when you're looking at not-for-profits and those kind of, whereas LLC is still very, very close to C Corp. I mean, it's still a limited liability corporation, but it's not so attractive for investors as it were, right? So you need to understand all of this, right? The right structure for your business at the end of the day before you go to set up. Imagine setting up a limited by guarantee company for a business that is meant for profit, right? That is like a fundamental mistake that you have made. And then you need to start incorporating another company to fix that error. You need lawyers to be able to hold your hand to tell you the right structure of business to set up. If you want to set up in the US, maybe a Delaware company, which most people do today, you need to consider whether you're willing to pay taxes even without making any money. At the minimum, if you set up a Delaware Corp, you're most likely going to pay about $1,000 to $1,200 per year, with or without doing any business, right? If you do business there and you make profit, fine, you pay more. If you don't do any business, you don't make profit, you don't have any money, you still need to pay. You pay local state taxes, then you pay federal taxes, right? At the end of the day, I mean, you incorporated the company, say you paid the lawyer $500, but every year you'd be like you're worshiping an idol there, just be putting oil every day. So every other year. But if you had considered where you are with your startup and your strategy, maybe your strategy to raise funds, your strategy to launch, and all of that as part of your considerations, it may not feel like a burden for you to pay some of these fees. For example, if you're looking to get into accelerator programs, or you're looking to get like US investors into your business, you want to make it more attractive to them because they understand US law, right? Then you set up a US holdco, I mean, a holding company that then holds your local subsidiary company in Nigeria. So, but in doing all of this, you need to be ready, right? And that's where like investment readiness comes in, which is what are the things you need to have to prepare your company for, like the investor that's going to come in ultimately, right? What are the things that investors will usually ask you for? And those are the things that you may not know on your own, but the lawyers that are on the other side, they've been on the buy side of the transaction, which is the side that is giving you the money essentially to buy equity in your business or shares in your business, would understand what an investor is looking for. And they're able to then prepare you for investors, right? I mean, prepare you, put like data room together, put like documentation together and all of that, right? So that's like part of preparing your business for and setting up your business for success. Eventually, it is not when the investor comes knocking that you're not prepared, you're found to be wanting, right? Then there's also regulatory arbitrage. One big thing that lawyers are able to help you do is help you figure out a way to set up in the most regulatory friendly manner. And what I mean by that is, think of it this way. You want to set up a business to do, let me just pick lending as an example. Let me pick BNPL, which is buy now, pay later, right? There's a way you set up buy now, pay later in Nigeria today, and then naturally you need to get a license. There's a way you set it up that you can get like a very cheaper license, like maybe money lender license or what have you. There's a different way you set it up that you need to go and get a national license from the CBN that will cost you minimum share capital of 100 million and all of that, right? And there's a third way that you set it that you not even need any license at all. So you need a lawyer that understands your business, understands the end goal of your business, because you need to look at the end goal as opposed to like the process. If you look at the process for too long, you will not even do anything at the end of the day because everything you see is regulatory blocker. But if you look at it from what your end goal is, which is to enable people buy products on maybe quote and unquote higher purchase, right? You can then decide to say, okay, you know what, I think higher purchase works for me. Then I don't need to go and get a separate lending license to offer my products to the public, right? So you need to be able to think with your lawyer through your entire value chain to see like how best for you to set up your business. But speaking about regulatory arbitrage, particularly, you want to look at the crypto world, right? People setting up like cryptocurrency companies today cannot necessarily do that in Nigeria because they know they don't have access to bank accounts. So instead, the question is, where do I set up my crypto company to make it, where is the favorable jurisdiction for my company? Again, the person that's best to advise you on that would be a lawyer who has helped to set up several of those kinds of businesses, understands the law in different countries, right? The fact that you're seeing a lot of startups setting up in a particular jurisdiction doesn't mean that that jurisdiction is favorable for your business. There could be tax implications that may not be favorable for you. There could be other implications that you're not looking at, which they have considered. They may have considered that their investor sits, their primary investor, their major investor, or their lead investor sits in a particular country, maybe in the UK. And that's why they're going to the UK to set up their business. You don't know, right? You don't fall into the same trap to set up a business in the UK or Canada simply because you want to do crypto without trying to understand why others have set up their business in that manner. But where a lawyer understands your business model, they're able to like advise you on how best or where best to go, right? In eventually setting up your business, right? Then there's employee and founder domicile, like where your employees are resident in, or like where you want to be. There's a popular issue now that everybody is facing with talent, which is Japa, and everybody wants to travel and leave the country, right? As a startup founder, you want to start thinking about like plans for your employees, right? To help them maybe in their course to Japa or not, right? So in doing that, you need to strategically set up your business. Maybe you can decide to set up in some friendly jurisdictions that would allow you help your colleagues or like your employees to migrate to that new jurisdiction, or maybe work from there like maybe 3 months and then come back to Nigeria, things like that, because it eases the tension, it eases the stress, and also helps them become more productive, right? You want to think about infrastructure and partnership, right? So there's a company called Zipline that are set up in like foreign jurisdiction, and they decided to pack their things and go to East Africa instead. Why? Because they saw that the regulation there is more favorable. They found that, the infrastructure there is easier for them to leverage for what they're trying to build. And they found the resources they needed there. So why not, right? You want to think about like partnerships as well. Who are the people you need to be talking to build your business? You need to think about like name. I'll talk more about name subsequently, so I won't dwell on it at this point. But one I'll dwell on is licensing. Licensing is a very big issue today, and a lot of startups get it wrong there at the very beginning, right? And then they start scrambling up and down at the later stage. So imagine that you never thought your product will become as successful as it became, right? You built a product, excellent product, you've launched in the market, and then you just, all of a sudden, maybe there's a policy by the CBN or there's some other policy somewhere, and then it just feels like people were actually waiting for that solution to come, to come to limelight. But you've already launched, right? Now you're out there. You're already like able to amass like maybe 1,000 users, just like that. And everybody is speaking and waxing lyrical about your product. Just imagine that the very next day, you realize that maybe you ought to have gotten a particular license that you didn't get. And your banking partners reach out to you and say, oh, because you don't have this license, we're turning you off, right? And that essentially just brings down your business from like 1 to 0. So you then start again. Before you climb up, someone else that has a license has launched a similar product, and that might be very, very difficult for you to come back into the market. So you need to think about licensing strategy, right? And when thinking about licensing strategy as a startup, you need to think about where you are, how much you have, right? How much you have raised or how much you intend to potentially raise, right? What licenses are the small ones that you can get? What partnerships can you leverage depending when you get your license? What sandbox environments are there? I mean, I know there's a sandbox environment called FSI for fintechs, right? I mean, you can start testing different types of like APIs and all of that without necessarily going to integrate a bank. You can use their API without integrating a payment partner. You can use their API even before you get your license. At least that would enable you build something that works, right? So you need to be able to think about all of those before you decide. And talking to a lawyer would also help you decide the most appropriate license for your business. So at the point where you're starting, the type of license that you're thinking about might be very limited in scope. Say, for example, you're thinking about launching a product, right? The type of license that you need at that point might just be, you can just tell the lawyer that, oh, we're launching a savings product. I mean, speaking to fintechs now, launching a savings product. And then the lawyer looks at it and say, okay, for a savings product, you need maybe a bank, or you need an MMO license, or you need some kind of license that enables you to save, right? But then down the line, you intend to lend as well. There are certain licenses that enables you to save money, accept deposits, but doesn't allow you to lend. So the problem is that you go and you rush to get a particular license because instead of you to look at your business model separately as a separate, distinct business, you look at an example of your business. So you can say, oh, my business is like Kuda. And because Kuda has a type of license, you go and get it. But then you forget the fact that you want to do remittance, right? You forget the fact that you intend to do maybe some other things that Kuda cannot do today. And then when you get to that point, then you realize that, oh, shoot, I should have gotten another type of license. Then you go back again to start. I mean, it could be like a very big issue, and it could potentially lead to shutting down your business, right? When you talk about startup disruptions, you need to also like pay attention to the regulations. The regulations are there for a reason, like I said, primarily to balance the interest between consumers and your own business, right? In terms of building your product, which is the next thing, I mean, you set up a company, you have your co-founder, you have your employees, you now want to like build your product, right? One very important thing is that you need to pay attention to trademark, right? The name that you have gotten, you need to ensure that like you do on your own, even before you involve a lawyer, just do a general Google search before you decide to pick that name, see if any other person has it, see what they do, right? And then consult a lawyer to see if you must use that name, please consult a lawyer, speak to them about like the possibility of you being able to use that name with limited risk. Now, the way trademark works is that it's very territorial and it is designated per industry or per class. I mean, legally speaking, we call it per class, but generally speaking, it's per industry. Essentially, what it means is that if you trademark a name or a mark, like a logo in Nigeria, for example, that trademark will not cover that product in, say, Kenya or Ghana, right? You need to trademark it separately in each country, right? Another thing about trademark that you must know is the fact that it's per class. So if you trademark something in the fintech class or financial services and all of that, and someone else goes to trademark it in software, right? You can't exactly lay claim to that trademark, right? And that's why you see that big companies who can afford it will trademark in all the classes per country. That is rather expensive for you. So you need to think with your lawyer about like your trademark strategy, right? Pick like 3 or 4 risk areas that you know what you want to have covered. For example, you're building a product, so you want to make sure you trademark like in the software class. It's a fintech product, you need to make sure you trademark in the financial service class. It's a service you're providing, you need to make sure you trademark in the service general class. If it is like maybe there's a training element to it, then of course you need to trademark it accordingly, right? So just making sure that you do like the right thing. And sometimes it's not advisable for you to do it yourself. I'll give an example of a common mistake that people make. Do you know that if you have a logo, as beautiful as it can be, let's say this bulb here is my logo today. If I trademark this bulb, right, as it is right here on my screen, the colors and everything, what I've just done is say that if you see this bulb in this color, then it's my trademark. But if you see it in another color and that person trademarks it in that color, then I don't have the right to claim their own trademark. So imagine doing it yourself and not having an understanding that when you're trademarking logos, there's a way to trademark a logo that it covers all colors, and there's a way to trademark it that it covers only one color, right? So like there are those technical details in between, and then you need to involve a lawyer at a very early stage. CIAA, briefly, I mean, it's what we call confidentiality and invention assignment agreement, and it is for your employees and yourself to make sure that that whole software you're building is actually assigned to your company correctly. The intellectual property in it is assigned to your company, both the ones built by employees, the one built by you, and all of that, because it is not yours at the end of the day. And that's the only reason why an investor will be comfortable with putting their money in your business, essentially, right? When it comes to patentability of software, in some countries like Nigeria, software is not patentable. You can't go and patent software. I see a lot of people paying money, huge sums, for people to patent software in Nigeria. There is nothing like that, please, because there are certain items that are patentable under the law in Nigeria. But when it comes to software, because of the nature, it's not capable of what we call industrial application and some other things, right? And in some cases, it might even be excluded, right? It is not patentable, right? And it's not our fault. We don't have the research capabilities to start checking every form of patent that exists to know whether or not your software is the first of its kind in that line of business, or your software is the first, is one of a kind and has never existed before we say, okay, we're granting you patents in that software, right? And I mean, the rights over these things don't inure for life, right? I mean, it depends on the different laws. Wow, time is fast spent. Okay, so I'll just quickly run very fast. In terms of like data protection, you want to make sure that you start thinking about data protection by design, as opposed to we're trying to fix our data privacy issues as we go on. So when it comes to product, there's something called product liability, as there's something called product compliance, which is when you're building your product, you want to hire a lawyer to look at the product from like different perspectives and be able to advise you on the risks associated with launching that product, right? There are certain industry standards, there are certain laws, there are certain regulations, there are certain international guidelines, right, that may decide how liability shift works, right, based on the product you're building. And you need to understand that in order to be able to structure an agreement properly with your partners and your users. Otherwise, you will find that you're coughing out money from your pocket to pay for the fault of someone else, right? So you need to like find out what these things are. Your lawyer needs to work with you, do like a lot of hand holding to help you figure out 360 what these things are. I mean, if you build a mobile application, I mean, before, a common issue that you'd face when you want to launch, right? For example, you try to put it on App Store or on Google Play Store, is you may be faced with an issue where you're not able to like register it. Why? Because they may say, oh, your privacy policy doesn't cover your product as much as it should, or your product has certain privacy vulnerabilities that may be explored or something like that. But imagine if by design you've contracted a lawyer to work with you, or a privacy professional, compliance professional to work with you during the phase of development. They would have been able to first-hand point those out and help you build this very correctly, right? Another part of it is partnership, right? You need to think about it in the sense of who are the people that I need to leverage in the industry. And when you think about them, you need to start thinking about how you'd have conversations with them. For example, what happens if they're building a similar product and you just like want to leverage them to launch, right? How do you protect yourself, right? How do you make sure that you can just wind down the relationship and move on very quickly? How do you make sure that risk is assigned in between, like between you and your partners, right? Is it every time there's a problem that you have to pay for it, right? At that times they would need to bear liability. How do you balance the interest between you and your partner? So it's very, very important for you to understand this, right? Sometimes you may want to insert clauses around non-compete, right? It will be very difficult to negotiate, especially when you're relying on them, right? And not the other way around. But it's like important to try at the minimum to say, oh, you know what? I'm building this, right? If you want to build something similar, you inform me ahead so that I will know, right, upfront that you're building something similar, and I'll be able to make a decision as to whether or not to terminate or continue with that relationship. You want to look at clauses around like rights of audit. Sometimes you enter into some partnership, they say, oh, they have the right to audit your entire product, tear it apart. In fact, look at your source code, right? When you have agreements like that, you want to get your lawyer to be able to insert clauses that balances the interest and say, okay, you know what, why do you need to audit this code? Why do you need to check my software? What exactly are you looking for? And then be able to limit it to those things that they need. In fact, at the end of the day, sometimes you finish negotiating such contracts and then they don't even need to do any of those things that they had listed as things that they must do with you. Right? When it comes to business operations, I mean, I've spoken about licensing. You need to consider like applicable laws, right? Very, very carefully. I remember years ago, I mean, when there was like ban of motorcycle in Lagos, right? A lot of people clamored and said, oh, you know what, this is just a draconian law, blah, blah, blah. How do you just wake up one day and issue a ban? But if you look at it carefully, in 2018 or thereabouts, if I'm correct, I mean, Lagos State had issued that law, right, saying that, oh, I think you can't do commercial business with bikes that are below, or you can't apply certain districts, business districts, and some districts within Lagos, right, or certain highway within Lagos with bikes that are less than 220 cc power. So if you have a bike that is less than that, it means you can, and only power bikes as much as that, except you build a business that is riding power bike, right? I feel like one thing that could have been done or done right is, again, next point, interface with regulators, which is at the point where you're launching your product, because you know you have a unique product, right? There's something we call lobbying. And you go to the regulator, maybe like working with your lawyer, to go and lobby and have those conversations, which is, you know what, we want to launch this product, right? We know this law exists, but this is the good things that this product will do. Don't worry, we know your problem is safety. This is how we intend to solve the problem. This is how we intend to do this. This is how we intend to do that, right? And your lawyers will help you write documentations like that, essentially. They are most times called product papers, right? Which they will help you write and then speak to regulators, right? And be able to influence policies to your own advantage. It is not after those policies are issued that you start shouting, oh, regulators are bad, they don't understand this. Because you didn't make them understand what you're building. Sometimes regulators will regulate something, you read the law, and you read the industry they are trying to regulate. It's like so far apart. But sometimes when they call for some of these conversations, right, you don't see any startups there. You just see lawyers sitting in the hall and you see policymakers. And I mean, at the end of the day, you find that decisions doesn't align with what goes on in the industry. So it's very, very important to have that at the back of your mind, even though you don't want to engage directly. Please put your lawyers on this to engage on your behalf, right? You need to be able to negotiate very, very well with your employees. Very important, because if you fail to negotiate contract of employment well, you may potentially put the company in danger of competition. So your employee might leave, hire like 10 people from your company with the money his father gave him or his relative, family, and friends gave him, and then crumble your business and build his own, right? That those kind of things. So you need to make sure that you also negotiate your contracts appropriately, right? As you're negotiating contracts, you also need to think about the interest of the employees. So how do I make sure I retain this particular employee for a longer time, right? Those are things you need to set out clearly in your contract of employment. So it could be incentives, right? And you need to set out those incentives in such a way that you also don't kill your business, right? You don't promise what you don't have, right? Then you can set it out in such a way that if we get here, which of course the employee will be an integral part of getting there, right? Then we can give you X or we can give you Y. So it's very important for you to understand all of this as you launch. And then, I mean, when it comes to AFCTA, you want to look at how it would encourage your business or how it would drive your business towards like a more Pan-African expansion, right? There's like a lot that the law seeks to do indeed, but one of the major problems of implementing the law is this fragmentation we have with like different laws. And I mean, that's like the problem one of the startups that I co-founded is trying to solve, which is helping you expand within minutes, right? Without having to like go through like local complexities in each country in Africa. Imagine you're expanding across 54 countries today as a SaaS product and you need to register a company across 54 countries. It can be really daunting. just trying to like find a solution to that problem is what we're doing, right? Exits, which is also very important. Trying to round up very quickly. Sorry, I'm 5 minutes out of time. Exits, which is also very, very key. I mean, you have different modes to look at your exit. And like I said, this exit plan needs to be discussed from day one, not at the middle, not at the end of your startup, not at that point where you've raised so much money, right? You need to determine whether or not you want to take your business to the point where you take it public and everybody across the world can become an owner of your business and you make a lot of money from it. Or you don't want that. You want to still be able to maintain huge control of your business, but you want someone to be able to acquire you, right? Or you want to be able to merge with another bigger company to continue to run your business. You may say, okay, you know what? I'm so passionate about this business. I want to run it as a family business. I don't want to open it up to anybody and it will just be me. I'd rather borrow money than raise money and all of that. It is also a very good plan. Because at the end of the day, when you're thinking about raises, you need to think about the fact that you're bringing in external people who were not part of your business, were not part of your vision, and you need to understand that like there needs to be like a lot of alignment between two of you. If that alignment is missing, it's better you go and borrow money, right, to run your business and know that you're running it on your own, right? So I mean, building a startup is forever exciting, but don't get too excited. Right? Because there's like a lot of hurdles that you need to try and figure out. But lawyers can definitely help you figure it out. I mean, we can also help you. I mean, like Mr. Kolabi mentioned, I co-founded a firm called Red Compass Consults, and we also work with a top-tier law firm called The New Practice, TNP, to help startups. We're like very startup focused. And when it comes to things around like helping startups navigate how to like get around laws, not bypassing laws, but I mean, how do you use laws to your advantage, right? We're all for that, and we're very happy to support you. Sorry, I took more time than I was allotted, but I hope this was as impactful as it should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bola Kale. Thank you so much. And I'm sure like every other person that's been on this, it's been so much you're trying to put in, you're asking yourself, will this 35 minutes have done justice to this conversation? But again, I hope with the question and answer, we'll be able to shed a bit more light. Thank you so much. Like I said at the beginning, there's some things that are just required. There's a lot of verticals and moving parts in putting together a startup. You know, startups, we need to come out from that mindset of I'm a celebrity. It's just all cameras and red carpets and flashes. There's a lot that is involved in building. And for you to build sustainably and build for the long haul, this again is one of the things you need to know. You need to know the legal landscape. And I think he's done significant justice to that. And I'll quickly do like a 1 minute recap of part of the things he said, and then we'll quickly jump into the questions, okay? Because some of the things he said, I think, like I'm trying to register a company, EdTech, should it be public, private, and all that? It's a function of the peculiarity. But I want to start again from experience from where he thinks legal things should start. And you don't always have to have an in-house lawyer. In fact, I will recommend, and that was the practice. I've been in business for 16 years. Starting initially, today we've got a full-fledged company secretary and legal team in the group. But for like the first 8 to 10 years, we couldn't afford that. But we always had lawyers that we went to on the per job cases. Gwala, I'll come back to you, that we went through and then they helped us solve issues. Where should your legal conversation start? When you are putting together the company with your founder. You know, the minute that idea came and you said, oh, I want to do a mobility tech. Oh, I was just going and I saw this thing. That's when you should begin to have a lawyer, where you are beginning to agree terms with a partner, okay? Where you are beginning to say, okay, this is what we want to do. That's from the onset is when you need to go meet a lawyer and have a conversation. Again, it's not at every point in time that these things come with cost, because I know the Nigerian thing, oh, I'm bootstrapping, how much money do I have and all that one. It saves you a lot of headache and a lot of money down the drain if you do that at the beginning. And two, you should learn that there are many things that it's not you that you have to pay for. Taking people, especially when it's advisory issues, taking them out on a lunch, taking them out on a dinner conversations, That's why you have your mentors. That's where you have your coaches. I think my wife was talking to me about an article she wrote about, oh no, she said she was speaking somewhere and she was talking about the song of Who Is Your Guy, okay? And she's saying your guy now should not just be your boyfriend or girl. Your guy now in today's world is who is your mentor, who is your coach, who is providing hand-holding for you. Make sure that your guy is not only the guy where you guys are, just talking all manners of, bantering. There needs to be some guys that are your sure guys. Your mentors, your coaches can give you access with a phone call. Okay, there's one of my guys here. I'm sending him to you over lunch. He has some ideas. Listen to him as a lawyer. So you find out that it's not everything that you're writing checks and it's expensive. Some of these things, your social capital can help unlock them, but they are important. In this time and age where co-founders exit and co-founders resign without notice and co-founders or founders jump ship and jackpot and all that, what is the rule? I've seen situations where co-founders will leave for 1-2 years and then they go for a new venture that doesn't work and they're trying to come back to the bank. How do you do it? How do you manage the costs you've had for those number of years? You've been abandoned with the risk. What is it? When the thing suddenly goes well, how do you think people are going to respond? That's why time sheet starting from the inside is important. I just felt I should make that emphasis because I've seen we did an hackathon, very interesting, Bola Kale will be short. We did a hackathon where we got people together and we did not know that part of the people in the hackathon actually just came in there to win the prize money. They had another company that he already had. He stole the idea from his original company that was already working and then brought it into a hackathon, brought a few guys together. They pitched, they won the hackathon, got the prize money in dollars and excited. And then the guy pulls out the door and they're like, hey, what's happening? And he says, no, this idea actually, and then the other company was writing to say it's our ideas he brought to a hackathon and all that. So you find out that human beings, who they are, you need to be careful who owns the idea as you start that dotted line, and it's about seeking the expertise of subject matter experts like Bola Kale. They will help you. It's cheaper in the long run. And then you jump from inside, I'll come out to the outside. I've seen one of the questions. Outside means regulatory framework. Oh, they banned Okada. They did all that. Did we read what was the Lagos State Master Plan? If you have spoken to a lawyer, was it strategic for us to go in that direction? Knowing fully well a few things that already have been put in place. Okay, so some of these things, yes, we get very emotive about them. But the problem with law is that law doesn't understand emotions. It's the facts, it's the rule of engagement. If this is the rule of engagement, fine. I used to have, Malik, very interesting. I was trying to set up a holdco in a jurisdiction of this country, okay? And in Nigeria, if I don't make money, you don't bother. These guys who are keeping the trust, stay writing me emails and sending me bills in thousands of dollars every year. I'm like, hey guys, are you okay? Well, I've not even done anything, no transaction. I just opened a bank account. They said, well, we represent you. Should I? It wasn't funny. And then there were issues of threatening, they'll sue you and all that. Again, offshore. Trust me, it wasn't easy winding up paying and bolting out of the door. That happened because I thought I was smart. I could do it on my own. You look for a shortcut, you will pay big time. And it's always better that you deal with it now than when you deal with when you are grown or you scaled up. And then people start showing up and saying, it's my idea. We're in this cafe when I wrote it in one piece of paper and then you took that. So just make sure that you understand. He also said something external where everybody is following the bandwagon. Oh, they've opened LLC somewhere and everything in US. Do you know the rules and the laws? Is somebody guiding you? You will be owing taxes in the US and you go and collect visa the minute you land the soil. I'm not sure what will happen to you, but something is likely to happen to you because guess what? If you are breaking the law in terms of tax filing, then you are liable. What are the potential laws and how is it unfolding? You need to have someone you can take out to lunch, you can pay for, subscribe to services that can help you in the regulatory framework. And of course, in your own industry, dealing with regulators. We've talked now about the macro, a country, and then you end up by saying even the regulatory of the ecosystem. Mobility tech, fintech, edutech. What are the nuances? What permits? How can I scale up in a strategic way? I sit on the board of an insurtech, and they've had been able to scale up because of regulatory issues around micro pensions and the bills and all those micro insurance and the bill to registration and all that. Again, how do you navigate? I'd once opened a firm which would have been easy, did a share capital of 450 million, paid huge amounts. And then other people just came, no licenses at all, working, using they called it tech-led. And today we're competing. I spend millions. And every year, because of my share capital, even when I don't make money, there's something called minimum tax. And based on share, I pay that. And these guys don't pay anything because they are tech-led. What are the rules that gives you an unfair advantage? You should know that. Some of us paid for it with scars and blows on the street because we didn't have people to handhold. Now you have people to handhold, and platforms like this leverage it. Okay, so I mean that's in a nutshell, to a large extent, in a nutshell, summarizes the concept of what we're talking about in this particular session. So I will jump into the chat room and see there are questions there. Somebody raised his hand, but it's gone down. But one question says, how can I stay up to date on changes to legal regulations in Nigeria and other African countries that could impact my tech startup? Okay, but like, how can they stay up? Changes are happening in Egypt, in Cairo, in Kenya, in Nigeria in itself. I mean, we see that I think CBN has still not agreed for crypto to come in, but the governor has said he's going to allow cryptos in Lagos and all that. How am I going to navigate all that to know what's happening? Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, so you can follow Reg Compass. I mean, REG Compass. So we do have like TLDRs for like almost all the laws that are being churned out. So I mean, TLDR, meaning too long didn't read, which is, I can't stress to read the law. What are they saying? How does it affect me? In summary, just like putting those educational content out from time to time. So you can definitely follow. For example, I mean, 2 days ago, 28, now, yeah, 2 days ago, the CBN issued a regulation saying that OFIs, which is like MFBs, for example, can now decide to convert and get like a commercial banking license, right? The question would be like, oh, I have an MFB, right? I've always wanted to become commercial. How do I do that? How do I make that work? Right. So, I mean, you have a series of those laws being published from time to time. So you can do well to follow Reg Compass, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, yeah, those 3 platforms. We push out those contents. Hello? Okay. Hello?
Okay, I think
So you're speaking just now. Okay, it's network, I see.
all right, thank you. Yeah, so there's a question here from Akanimo, which says, if I'm to register a company, EdTech, what should it be? Public, limited, or which? Okay, I think the host is back now.
I lost my internet fluctuated a bit. So thanks very much for Madlika, and thanks for providing that context. So Victor, you do us the honor of dropping the email address of the website of Reg Compass, so that people also can see it. Essence, again, is a providing value, such that they can be able to follow his handles, and Malika also dropped that in the chat room, follow his handles, hit him up, see what's happening. Because again, these things, why do we have people who are specialized in the field as entrepreneurs and startups? You've got a lot of things here. I can't hear you. Okay, can Godwin hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, good. As entrepreneurs and startups, you've got a lot of things you're chasing, from building your team to iterating and all that. You need to have support structures like Reg Compass helping out. So I think it's drop the website, look at the website, hit them up, follow them, and then you can, to a large extent, update yourself. But the issues around the law is critical, especially if fame and fortune smiles on you. That is when you will understand that people will come after you. You understand that there'll be a lot of controversy. I mean, some of our exciting unicorns almost ran into regulatory issues that will almost tear down the house. I'm talking just a couple of months ago about when they started it, who was where, what was the support, things in countries. Those bad and negative press have serious impact on the fortunes of a company. So again, you need to make sure that you follow the road. Somebody had said, for a fintech startup, with tier 1, is there any license for that? I'm not sure if I know what tier 1 is, but I think Bola Kale can let us. He says he has a fintech startup and he has a tier 1 license. He's in tier 1. Does he need any license? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think I would like to know what tier 1 means, because tier one has like different meanings. So you can say tier one microfinance bank, for example. That's a type of license, right? So if you let me know what a tier one fintech is, I mean, like the context of the tier, it would like help me tell you the type of license that you'd need to get. So the question needs to be clearer.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. You can just drop that in the chat room. Somebody says a question from the audience: does a tech startup need to register different business name for each tech project? It depends on, and this is very commercial. Okay, Balakale, you go ahead, and then I'll help on context there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, the easiest way to do it, especially if you're looking at it from an IP perspective, just register a trademark in that brand name.
Thank you.
So, I mean, so you have different products, for example, you can just like register each brand name separately, because don't forget that the product name that you have, someone else can start a company in that same name and then decide to run a similar product. So you don't want to lose that, right? So whilst you can have like one name, you don't need to go and register like separate businesses. You just register the trademark at the minimum. That would help.
Yeah. Great. Trademark works because, again, remember, and I know many of us are not complying, but Nigeria is at a place where they need a lot of money. CAC will come after you. Quite a number of us have registered so many companies that are not filing your annual returns. They will come for you, okay? So the challenge is, do not overburden yourself with so many legal entities registered. Some of your products you have is, what you call projects are products. So some of those products, just trademark them and launch them and let them know it's the property of this particular company. So they have just one company that is saddled with regulatory issues, tax, pension, CAC, annual returns. You want to keep your operations as lean as possible while also making sure it's protected. So I will defer to what Balakale has said. Those projects, you can tie those projects into brand names or product names and register the products in there. And then I think you're fine. Okay, you're fine. Okay, it says tier one, that allows us to fund and withdraw money without BVN. First Money Wallet does that. It says that's what it means by tier one.
Yeah, so I think what he's just trying to say is that he wants to be able to provide some fintech or financial services to tier one accounts. Tier one accounts are like KYC tier one, I mean, just phone number and name, right? You don't need ID. But whether like okay, can you hear me now?
We can. I think we can hear you.
Okay, so whether you're providing for tier one or tier three, regardless of who you're providing it to, what determines license is the service itself as opposed to the recipient of the service. So First Money is the first bank product, right? So First Bank is a commercial bank, right? They can provide it to anybody. So what determines that is the service you provide, right? So if you want to build a product like First Money, it means you're looking at building either agency banking service or you're looking to build a Bomba Money service, right? There are 3 different licenses that you can get to offer something similar. By that, you get agency banking service, agency banking license, in which case, I mean, you can then provide, you can provide the services of a bank on behalf of a bank or on behalf of a mobile money operator, right? Or you get a banking license, right? You can get MFB, maybe tier 2. Units license tier 2, which is about 50 million share capital, right? If you don't want to do that and you have enough money, say 2 billion naira and above, you can then decide to get like a PSB license or a mobile money license. A PSB license is Payment Service Bank. That is what like the likes of MTN, Momo, Hope, I mean, Glo, and the remaining telcos have. Or you do like mobile money operators license, it runs in the billions as well. Right, I mean, that's the likes of Paga, OPay, PalmPay, those people, right? So, I mean, those are like the license tier category that would work for what you're looking to build.
Okay, I think that really helps. And somebody had asked a question that, earlier on, but I think when my internet shut down, I lost it about, that means it's impossible to register an innovative product in Nigeria. Maybe not. Maybe you took out of context the issue about registering software. There are different kind of things. Again, this platform might not be sufficient where you need to know how to ring fence your business. based on the available formal institutional framework you have in here. So people might not be able to look at the code base because every time I play on both sides of the sector, which means I have a lot of conversations and sit down with policymakers, helping them curate policy based on the work I do in eco-innovation. But I also have startups because I've got a startup studio where we're building startups, okay? And I also invest in startups. You will find out that regulation always lags innovation. Regulation always, and it's a global phenomenon, regulation always lags innovation, which means the policymakers, people giving the rules, they will always be behind. Because the guys in the startup ecosystem globally, you're always innovating and moving. And you see, even globally, they're trying to do catch up in the US and all that. So in knowing that, you need to get lawyers to help you see what are my current regulatory protection. We don't have enough people that can look at software codes and be able to, patent and all that is what he's talking about. But if you're able to ring fence it as a service, if you're able to demonstrate what this product solves, forget about the code, because the code ultimately brings a solution. There are many codes everywhere, but we're running all manners of platforms and apps that have code bases behind them. We don't want to go to the back of the code bases where we're talking about who stole my base, who borrowed my base, my line of code, I did this line of code. That's not it. We're saying, what's the external service? If I cannot, protect the code base, the external service that I'm offering to consumers and all that, is there a way I can get that service ring fenced? And I'm not the expert. Bola Kale is also in the house and his firm. So there's always a way to navigate these constraints. Don't drop your hands in the air and say, in Africa and everywhere, you can't protect your innovation. No, don't have that mindset. Because again, this is where the opportunities are. This is, as you are jackpotting, we're having other people looking inward into this piece, this 200 million people, what's the best service? How can I go in? So look more internally and see, how do I navigate this constraint? Because the more you navigate the constraints, the more you get better at it, the more you increase the valuation of your business. Because when people can easily do what you do, valuation is not exciting. It's not a big deal. But the minute you're able to overcome all these constraint challenges, you see that the valuation goes up because everybody's now wondering, how do I catch up with you? Okay. So just to encourage someone along the line, again, I know we have run 11 minutes beyond that time, and I always try to we had a few internet challenges here and there, and because of that, I think we ran ahead by another 11 minutes, but I do not want it to go further than this. So again, in case you have questions, I think Bola Kale had done a lot of justice to this topic, and that again is what excites us. Every time we bring people on board to this platform, every last Thursday of the month, we want to be sure that it's worth every investment of your time, and I saved some, giving you an ability to dodge a bullet. With this one, a couple of people I'm sure have dodged the bullet by knowing what they need to do. But much more than that is the fact that there is a community where you can continue to get ongoing support, not just the 1 hour you get on the Thursday. Ongoing support, asking questions, hitting them up. And that's the community we have. It's called the TechBiz WhatsApp community. It's called the Tech Nation. And we've got the Telegram community. My colleagues are dropping both in the chat group. Just join the link for all it's worth. You just might find out, I don't need information now, but one day I need that information. You drop it in the group and people join in. It's a community where people help to provide support. And please make sure you're a part of it. And we're sure that Bola Kale also will be there to be able to help to handhold. It's the 97th episode of TechBiz, and we've had subject matter experts every time come to add value to us. And this has been brought to you again from the stable of Eco Innovation Center. It's an incubation and acceleration center, 750 Awolowo Road, to provide hand-holding support to start up in the ecosystem, and basically to help them commercialize and scale. Our encouragement is that be a part of what we're doing. All our recordings, even this one will be up by noon tomorrow. All you have to do is go to all the previous 96 recordings, and you find them at www.ecoicenter.com/techbiz for the webinar, and you will find all the recordings in there. Feel free to go through any one of them at your leisure, and then make sure you stay up to date with Eco Innovation Center, www.ecoicenter.com, and see all the things we're doing around training, which we have Eco Institute of Technology doing amazing work, running boot camps, running webinars to help people. Somebody asked a question, how can I go into tech? When I tell people this is my fourth career change, because again, I don't want to start it. I trained as a pharmacist 22 years ago. People never believe that. 22 years ago, I was a pharmacist. One, you're never too old, you're never too late. And it doesn't matter where I come from, the extreme science of cramming chemistry. I've done 4 career changes, and here I'm playing the space of tech because, hey, why will I want to be arcade? I want to be part of what's happening in the future, and here am I, again, adding value. When I tell people I've just been in the ecosystem for 5 years, people don't believe that. So it's a function of you wanting to be where value is being created. You want to join this? follow us very well. Follow us as my colleagues drop the link of the website link for Eco-Innovation Center on the chat, and see all the things that are happening in our schools, how we help people move from non-tech to tech jobs and tech skills and coming to the industry. With the hackathons we run for startups that can allow you attract funding, can bring you out there. We've run the Secure Hackathon. We're now putting together a call for application for the Marketing and Media Hackathon. As we look at marketing and media platforms, shaping conversation, shaping narration, how you need to be there. Why don't you look at the hackathons? And all you have to do is hit us up and see what's happening in there. You want a co-working space, we can also provide you some support as you start up gradually. And there are many other services you'll find in the Eco-Innovation website when you look up to the website and you follow us on any of our handles, which my colleagues are dropping in the chat room. We promise to always bring value to you every time we come in contact with you. Balakale, I want to say a big thank you to you, okay? We know you guys do these things for free every time, coming to share value from the world of experience you gain working in this space and all that, and we can pay you enough. We can have the people pay. We can just continue to hope that as we build the ecosystem, we all get better for it and we build a better, more viral nation. So on behalf of everyone that was on the webinar today and my super amazing, wonderful team, I want to say a big thank you for coming out to share out of your wealth of experience with us today. And we do hope that when we reach out to you next time in the future on such similar ventures to help build our people, add value, provide handholding, provide services that will help grow the ecosystem, we do hope that you open your doors and your hearts to us to receive us like you've done today. Thank you very much, Balakale. And thanks everyone who has been a part of TechBiz today. I do hope you had some amazing time with us in the last 60-65 minutes thereabout. And we hope to be able to catch up with you again as we bring another subject matter expert to the platform, this time the last Thursday of the month of April. It's the end of a quarter. This month ends tomorrow. I hope Q1 has been a fantastic quarter for you. We dealt with a lot of things, but what I love about Nigerians, we are still standing. There were no cash, okay? People are beginning to forget that at the time they were queuing, at the POS places, and we're buying our own currency, not buying US dollars. We're subsidizing our own money. We had POS people raiding. We had fuel issues. We had politics. We had all manners of crises and hate speeches. But despite it all, we're still standing. And that is the spirit, the Nigerian spirit. We'll continue to build and build a better, more viral nation. And I'm sure that every one of you on this platform, we will definitely admit at the top. Thank you very much for keeping a date. See you next month. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of your weekend.